Hey guys, so today we will be reacting to 3 unsettling Christmas horror stories animated. So we're only gonna do like one, but yeah.
Every year before Christmas, a terrifying feeling grabs my heart and mind. It's been 10 years, but I still can't erase the haunting memory of one Christmas day. My son was 5 years old when this incident happened. After the separation from my husband, Damien was my everything.
Noise, guys.
He was always nice to people and good with kids at school. Whenever I went to pick him up from school, I always saw him surrounded by friends. I was happy to see him fitting in nicely with groups. The week before Christmas...
Okay, let me just say, subscribe. Okay, I just subscribed. Give it a big thumbs up. And, share it to things, And, yeah, just saying it's a very good channel. Shout out to them.
Damien's school staged a children's play. After the show ended, I was driving home with him. I was praising him for his excellent performance in the play, when he just told me, "I made a new friend today, Mom." I smiled back and said, "You've been such a good boy this year, and I'm sure Santa will bring you lots of gifts for Christmas." His face lit up when I told him that. We got back home and had dinner. I tucked Damien into bed and he went to sleep. The next morning, when I woke up and went to the kitchen to make breakfast, I noticed the cookie jar was broken. Shattered glass and cookies were lying all over the kitchen floor. I got really pissed off and called Damien into the room. Damien was brushing his teeth and came to the kitchen about 10 minutes later. He looked up at me and said, "What is it, Mom?" I said in an angry voice, "Did you break the cookie jar last night?" He shook his head and said, "No, it wasn't me." I said, "Really? Then who was it?"
Guess. I already watched this, but guess. Okay.
Damien looked at me and said, "It was Mr. Nobody." As I
Nobody? That's super weird. Okay.
was in no mood for such jokes, I got even more angry and said, "Don't you try to fool me, Damien." Damien started to sob and said, "I am telling the truth, Mom. I told you I made a friend yesterday. He said his name was Mr. Nobody. He was the one who broke the cookie jar last night." Then he started to cry. I picked him up into a big hug and decided to drop the issue. I figured, like every other child, he too had an imaginary friend, and due to the fear of being grounded, he was just making up a story. Christmas was now 2 days away. My ex-husband...
Cool. If this was true and there was a Mr. Nobody, that's so scary, especially when it's Christmas time,
called and said that he'd like to join us for Christmas dinner. I knew how much Damien missed his father, so, for his sake, I decided to put aside our marital issues.
Okay, have you seen the mom's double chin? It's it's very weird.
For one night. That evening, I was doing house chores when I heard Damien's footsteps in my room. "Damien, how many times have I told you not to play in my room?" I screamed out loudly. I could see a shadow moving on the wall
Look at that double chin!
opposite my bedroom door.
And the fact that their eyes are huge. Oh my. I don't think the mom got any sleep.
I rushed to the corridor to scold Damien. I was about to peek inside when I heard Damien's voice from behind me. "Mom, I'm hungry." I was shocked and absolutely terrified at the same time. I slowly walked towards him and said, "Did you go into my room?" But Damien said, "No, I was in my room," and did something really creepy. He looked over my shoulder as if someone was standing behind me. I immediately turned around, but didn't see anyone there. Later on, I checked my room and the entire house, but all the doors and windows were already locked. Also, there was no sign of any forced entry. I got really worried this time and noticed weird things happening around the house. I started decorating the house as Christmas was knocking on the door. But sometimes I noticed things being
As Christmas was knocking on the door.
misplaced from their positions. Like, if I kept a lamp beside the porch in the living room and left for a few minutes, I always ended up finding it in the corner of the wall.
Dun dun dun. How weird.
Damien was too small to lift such a heavy lamp, and there was no one else in the house. One night, I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water and thought to check on Damien on my way back. As I got close to his door, I heard his voice talking. He was speaking to someone.
He said,
Talked in a very low voice, but I could still hear him. Damien was saying, "You can't walk around the house at night like this. If Mom sees you, she won't let you stay with us." I immediately entered his room, thinking
the son's voice is very familiar. Like, very.
someone broke into our house, but there was no one inside. Damien was sitting on his bed nervously. I asked him, "Who were you talking to?" He looked towards his closet and then looked back at me. I said in a tensed voice, "Damien, you are scaring me now. Is there anyone in your room?" He still didn't say anything and just kept staring at me. I went to the
If I was the mom, I would move straight away. I don't care if it was like a good guy or bad guy. I would honestly just move away right away.
closet and opened the door with my trembling hand. There was no one inside. I heaved a sigh of relief and scolded Damien for staying awake so late. I tucked him into bed and went to bed myself.
Oh my. When the son was sleeping, it looks so weird. It looks like the eyes were blurred out.
I couldn't sleep that night. Damien's weird behavior had me worried. The next day was the day before Christmas, so I decided to take Damien to the mall to let him buy things for decorating the Christmas tree. We had a fun time, and I bought him some ice cream. On our way back, I asked Damien, "How's your friend,
How old is that kid? Because he's sitting in the front.
Damien?" He said, "Which friend, Mom?" I said in a hesitated manner, "Your new friend, Mr. Nobody." Damien's face turned sad, and he said, "I don't think we're friends anymore, Mom." I asked, "Why is that?" He replied, "He doesn't listen to me. Also, I feel scared of him." I was really quite shocked to hear him talk about his imaginary friend as if it were real. After getting back home, I told Damien, "What does Mr. Nobody look like, Damien?" He went to his room and brought me a drawing he had made. When I looked at the first page, I saw a very creepy figure. Damien drew himself on the bed, and there was a thin, triangle-faced man standing beside him. The man had a huge smile on his face, like someone had cut his mouth from one
You will see that actually that drawing is very realistic. I'm pretty sure it's very realistic. Just wait.
ear to the other. His
But that is very scary. Like, that almost looks like Momo's husband, to be honest.
eyes were huge, and his eyeballs were blood red. The picture disturbed me to the core. I turned to Damien and said, "How did you meet this guy?" He said Mr. Nobody came to watch him play and asked to come to our house with him. I felt goosebumps on my skin. I said in a low voice, "Do you mean he lives in our house now?" Damien once again looked behind me, and I was about to turn around when the doorbell rang. The doorbell scared the shit out of me, but I somehow managed not to let my fear show. As I opened the door,
Sorry.
I saw Paul standing in the doorway. Paul is my ex-husband. We exchanged smiles and I let him in the house. Damien was so excited to see him just before Christmas, and they both started
Those creepy dolls on the trees, though, and the dad's big nose, like.
to decorate the Christmas tree. I couldn't shake the terrible feeling about Damien's imaginary friend, Mr. Nobody. After dinner, as Damien was put to sleep, I told Paul about all of this. He laughed and told me that I shouldn't be taking a kid's imagination so seriously. And that's the main thing I hated about Paul. He never took me serious, unless we got into trouble. The same thing happened in this case as well. On Christmas morning, we were all feeling excited. I went to Damien's room and woke him and Paul up, as Paul was sleeping in his room. We all came to the living room and witnessed a shocking scene. The Christmas tree was in complete ruins. It seemed like
Oh my goodness.
someone scratched it with something sharp and pointy. The toys and ornaments we hung on the tree were all scattered all over the floor. Paul and I both knew it wasn't Damien. But Damien started to cry and said, "Trust me, Mom, it's Mr. Nobody. He broke the Christmas tree." I didn't know what was going on.
I would believe him, and I would move away, because I'm, like, I get very scared very easily, so, you're welcome for watching this.
Neither did Paul. We calmed down our son and started to rearrange the decorations once again. Around 6 o'clock that evening, we had everything back the way it was before. I cooked a delicious dinner, and Damien got excited opening his Christmas presents, which were
I actually like your things in my house now, too.
filled with toys and candies, and Damien started smiling again. Damien was watching the Christmas Day parade on the television, while Paul and I sat at the kitchen table, quietly with our glasses of wine. Paul understood I was still disturbed with everything going on in the house. He spoke in a low voice. "You should probably leave this house and move somewhere else. I can arrange that
Right? I like the dad. He gets me.
for you and Damien." I was already thinking about that. I nodded to Paul's suggestion and agreed to take his help on this matter. We were all set on leaving the house the next morning and staying with my parents for a while until we could get a new house. I tucked Damien into his bed and went to sleep. Paul wanted to have a
about the
few more
noise. That
drinks
was
and
my
watch some
brother.
television, so I left him on his own. Around 2 a.m. in the morning, I heard a soft crying voice coming from Damien's room. Damien's room is on the opposite side of the living room. I rushed to his room and noticed Paul passed out on the couch.
Ooh.
I thought my son might have had a bad dream, so I didn't wake Paul. As I stepped near his room and opened the door, I froze in fear. I will never be
Sorry.
able to forget what I saw in that room, but I can say with great assurance that I
didn't get to
wasn't
see it.
imagining it.
What was it? What?
I saw a thin, triangle-faced man
That is
lying on the
scary.
ceiling
That
over
is
Damien's
super
bed
realistic.
and looking directly at him with his blood-red, angry
Oh
eyes.
my, yes.
Damien was sitting on his bed and sobbing in fear. He was so horrified that he could barely cry out loud. I screamed at the top of my lungs at that demonic figure who looked at me and howled in his spine-chilling voice by opening his huge, dark mouth.
Yeah, that
His
is
howl
scary.
sounded like it didn't belong in this world.
Family thing.
My scream woke up my husband, and he ran to Damien's room. By then,
Wait,
I had already
in the beginning, they were divorced. I thought they broke up. I think that's what they said in the first place, but I'm not sure.
grabbed my son and came out of the room. I said in a crying voice, "Get us out of here! I don't want to be in the house for another second!" We all got out of the house immediately and stayed the night at a nearby motel. The next morning, we went back to my house and packed a few necessary things before leaving for my parents' house. I left Damien inside the car because I didn't want him to step inside this house ever again.
Okay, well, bye, guys. My friends are calling me. Bedtime. Bye.